Subscribe to the channel for more real-life relationship stories. I always thought best friends were supposed to know you inside out, your fears, your secrets, and your limits. But that Saturday evening, I learned that even the closest friend can cross a line in a way you never anticipate. It started as a simple joke. My best friend, Jason, had been visiting for the weekend, and we were sitting in my living room, sharing a few beers and reminiscing about old college days. Laughter filled the room, and everything felt casual and carefree. Jason had always had a knack for teasing, and I was used to it. Or at least, I thought I was. He leaned back on the couch, grinning mischievously, and said, "Hey, do you remember that time you almost got dumped by Sarah over that ridiculous misunderstanding?" I chuckled, nodding. That was harmless, a shared memory, a laugh at my past mistakes. But then, his tone shifted slightly, a smirk creeping onto his face. Imagine if it had been today. What would you do if Sarah did something completely shocking? I raised an eyebrow, intrigued but not alarmed. Jason loved to exaggerate for effect. Like, what? I asked, leaning forward. He paused, taking a sip of his beer, then with a dramatic flourish said, "What if she pretended to cheat on you? Just for fun, like a harmless joke, to see how you'd react." I laughed nervously. "Jason, that's cruel. No one would do that." But a strange unease started settling in my chest. There was something in the way he said it, a mix of humor and challenge, that made my stomach tighten. Later that night, Sarah called me to ask if I wanted to go out for dinner. I agreed, thinking nothing of it. But the moment I arrived, I noticed something odd. She seemed unusually quiet, fidgety even, constantly checking her phone. She smiled, but it felt forced, almost rehearsed. My heart began to race. Could Jason's jokes somehow become real? No, I told myself. It's just a coincidence. As the dinner progressed, Sarah kept glancing at her phone, laughing softly at messages I couldn't see. I tried to ignore it, focusing on our conversation, but the uneasy feeling wouldn't leave. Every laugh, every secretive smile, every subtle hesitation in her tone amplified my anxiety. The harmless joke scenario Jason had described earlier that evening kept replaying in my mind like a warning I couldn't shake. By the time dessert arrived, I was tense, my hands gripping the fork tighter than necessary. I wanted to ask her directly, to confront her about what was going on, but I hesitated. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe Jason's words had simply planted an unnecessary seed of doubt. But then Sarah dropped a comment that made my blood run cold. "I think it's time I tell you, just to see your reaction." I froze, my fork hovering midair. "Tell me what?" I asked cautiously, my voice barely above a whisper. Sarah's eyes sparkled with mischief, but there was also a flicker of hesitation, as if she knew exactly how much power she held in that moment. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Remember Jason's joke earlier today? About pretending to cheat? Well, I thought maybe it could be fun, just to see your reaction." My chest tightened. The words felt like ice running through my veins. I wanted to laugh, to shake my head, to call it ridiculous, but instead, a cold knot of anxiety formed. The joke wasn't harmless anymore. It was real, and it was happening to me. "You're serious?" I asked, trying to keep my composure. She nodded, a nervous grin tugging at her lips. "Yes, just for a little while. I didn't think it would bother you that much." I couldn't believe it. My mind raced through every possible outcome, every possible reaction I could have. Anger? Betrayal? Confusion? The cocktail of emotions was overwhelming. I felt trapped between trusting her and protecting myself from the emotional chaos that was unfolding. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A message from Jason. "How's my little experiment going?" I stared at the screen, jaw tightening. He had planned this. He had orchestrated a harmless joke that had spiraled into something terrifyingly real. I put the phone down, taking a deep breath, trying to calm my racing thoughts. "Sarah, this isn't funny," I said finally, my voice steady but firm. "Even if it started as a joke, this feels like a betrayal. A test like this is not harmless." She looked down at her plate, remorse evident in her posture. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just want to see how much you care, how you'd react. I leaned back in my chair, running my hands through my hair. Tests like this don't measure love. They measure patience, and right now, my patience is wearing thin. Just then, there was a knock at the door. I hesitated, my heart skipping a beat. When I opened it, Jason was standing there, a smug grin plastered across his face. "So how'd it go?" he asked casually, like he hadn't just set my world on edge. I stared at him, incredulous. "You did this? You set this up?" He shrugged. "I call it an experiment. You handled it well, I think, mostly." I felt a wave of frustration, anger, and disbelief wash over me. My best friend had turned a harmless joke into an emotional minefield. And yet, as I looked at Sarah, I saw the nervous anticipation, the fear of my reaction, the tiny spark of hope that I would forgive her. I realized then that love wasn't just about trust. It was about handling chaos, navigating surprises, and choosing each other even when the world seemed to test that choice at every turn. I took a deep breath, looking from Jason to Sarah. "You both thought this would be funny? That it would be harmless?" I asked, my voice calm but edged with tension. Jason's grin faltered slightly as he realized I wasn't laughing. Sarah reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. "Mark, I didn't think it would go this far. I thought it would be a little test. Nothing serious. I wasn't expecting it to scare you or make you doubt me." I studied her, seeing the genuine remorse in her eyes. The knot of anxiety in my chest began to loosen, replaced by a slow, simmering understanding. "I get it. You want to see how I react. But love isn't about tests. It's about honesty. You don't need fake scenarios to prove anything. I trust you, always have, always will, without having to be tricked." Jason, sensing the gravity of the moment, cleared his throat. Maybe I went too far. It seemed like a harmless joke, but clearly it wasn't. I nodded, still holding Sarah's hand. "It wasn't harmless, but it's done now. We need to move past this, together." Sarah smiled softly, a mixture of relief and gratitude washing over her face. "I promise, no more tests. I've learned my lesson." The tension slowly faded as the night went on. We talked openly about boundaries, trust, and respect. We laughed again, cautiously at first, but genuinely as the hours passed. Jason apologized properly, admitting he had underestimated the emotional impact of his experiment. By the next morning, everything felt lighter. The joke, the fear, the anxiety. It had all served as a strange kind of wake-up call. It reminded me that even the strongest relationships need clear communication, understanding and respect for each other's emotional limits. Trust is fragile, and while testing it might seem tempting or playful, it can leave cracks if handled carelessly. A few days later, Jason and I went for a walk. He tried to lighten the mood with his usual humor, but I saw a subtle change in him. "I didn't realize how much this would affect you," he admitted quietly. "I guess I learned something about boundaries, too." I nodded. "Yeah, boundaries, respect, and trust. Remember, a joke isn't harmless if it breaks the other person." That weekend, Sarah and I had a quiet dinner, reflecting on the incident. It was strange to feel grateful for something that had initially terrified me, but I realized that the harmless joke had taught us both a lesson about patience, understanding, and the importance of communicating even the simplest intentions. Looking back now, I see that the experience strengthened our relationship in ways that would have been impossible without it. The fear, the tension, and the eventual honesty reminded me that love isn't just about feeling happy moments together. It's about weathering storms, facing unexpected tests, and choosing each other even when the outcome is uncertain. That night, as we sat together on the couch, I pulled Sarah close and whispered, "No more tests, no more games, just us." She smiled, resting her head against my shoulder. And in that moment, I realized something important. The joke may have shocked me, but it also showed me the resilience of our bond and the power of trust when it is chosen, not tested.